This piece I definitely has unity. I think any 1-point perspective drawing will have unity. Okay, so here I am still trying to figure out how to watercolor as well as watercolor, how to properly do the light source that will be coming from the left over the hill where the train tracks cuts through as a tunnel. I chose watercolor because I've never worked with it ever, and I'm sure if I wasn't using a children's set of watercolors, it would have probably turned out better my first time going. But that said, I haven't quite figured out the light source yet. As you can tell, I think right here, yep, it looks like right here, I finally figured out that when it comes to the principles, you can see that it definitely has shape. I think that I pulled the 1-point perspective off pretty good, especially having only done it, you know, on this scale 1 or 2 times. It will have value later on, as you can tell. I'm getting this started right now. It gets darker towards the side of the sky, gets darker towards the side of the skinnier tower, and then dark shadows, the cast shadows off the smaller tower I put in purple, and with the value it would be brighter. I'm trying to pull off that it's brighter in the middle, as the sun is bouncing up the hill, shining down, like kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel, sort of. I totally didn't do that on purpose, but it kind of is what it turned out to be. Shape, it definitely has a shape, obviously, and I think that it came off pretty good. And like I said before, I need color theory so bad. But here's where I'm playing with the foreshortening. As you can see, I've never actually tried it before, but it actually is pretty easy to pull off. And the reason I did a giant hill in the tunnel is because I actually forgot the last door. But hey, it turned out pretty good, I think. Not enough room for the pool with the 2-point perspective, so I just went ahead and drew a pool separately, and I went a little differently. I wanted to see if I could pull off looking at the pool like directly down, almost like a pool table. And okay, this is what I wanted it to look like. This is the comic version filter, and this is what I came up with. And I'm using ink, and I have practiced and practiced and it is so hard to pull anything off. And what I'm doing is I'm just using the line and then justifying it by it's the same line. I'm just going over it again. This is my empty swimming pool. Now I wanted this to look like I was looking directly down, kind of like at the end of a pool table. I think I got the perspective really well, but the value, I'm not entirely sure that I've pulled it off. I know you can see my light source. There isn't any texture. It does have unity. Other than that, it is a brown empty swimming pool. And moving on to my 2-point perspective, which I actually finished before my 1 point because I wasn't happy with my 1 point, and I basically started over. And then when I started over, I actually did it wrong. But anyway, this is my take on what I remember the stereotypical military building to be. In Fort Hood, they were all these weird tan, gray, orangish, same colors, same design. I'm cheesing it up a little bit. I put a clock tower And the clock tower could be the clock itself. I wasn't sure how to do. I think the perspective lines on the top of the tower are off, or the clock itself is not square. As for space, it does exist in space. The colors could be better. Just like when I said last semester that I needed to learn how to do value and perspective, I am in desperate need of some color theory. As you can see, I also attempted to experiment with oil pastels, not really having any clue on how to pull it off, and I actually regret using them. But it definitely has form. It has form. The 2-point perspective, for the most part, is what I consider pretty good. It has form. It doesn't have much value because I'm not entirely sure how to pull off value on a 2-point perspective drawing yet. I'm sure that's something that I will pull off eventually. I'm attempting to play with the brown and I'm scraping with a bamboo pencil to try to give it some texture, because the buildings that I'm remembering are they feel like sandpaper to the touch, a really thick grit sandpaper. Obviously it has lines because it's a perspective drawing. I'd like to think it has a lot of balance. It's balanced so well that I forgot to leave room for the pool, as you saw. It doesn't have much variety. I would like to think that its emphasis is on the actual building. It doesn't have any movement other than possibly the nuclear bomb I'm attempting to explode in the background. It has pattern and its proportion. And I don't even remember proportion being on the list, but and this is my 2-point perspective drawing for your viewing pleasure. This is my watercolor drawing, and it's gonna shift and change so that I can describe it. The first thing I see wrong is that I believe that this domed window, the light source, should be closer to the inside of the tower, because the light source is actually coming over the hill and casting into the middle, so it should be darker where it is lighter. However, I drew this first and had already put Fix-It on top of it. This domed window, or at least my attempt on a dome window, is actually the first time I'm even remotely pulling something off the top of my head. I'm not using anything to look at as I'm shading and drawing this. And up till this, I have not actually been able to do it. I'm not sure that I've done it now. I'll leave that up to you. Okay, this is my 1-point perspective drawing. Obviously, I actually did it second. Well, I started it first, but then I actually learned some things in 2-point and went back and significantly started over, as I addressed earlier on in this video. I'm actually really proud of how this turned out. First of all, it's the first time I've ever used any kind of watercolors, so I think I really like how the watercolor gave the suggested texture of wood on the buildings. I like how the light source, once I finally pull it off, once I actually pull off the light source, it's supposed to be coming over the hill, and then illuminating the middle, kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel. I wish I would have went back and did some green shading on the hill, which I might still, but the color, again, I wish, and I need color theory. The shape, it's a perspective drawing, so obviously it has shape, it has form. The value, I think, could be better, but I'm getting there. I'm starting to identify how the light would bounce where, without actually looking at a picture. The texture, I really really like how the texture or the illusion of texture turned out. I mean, obviously it's the perspective drawing, so it has lines. Because it is a 1-point perspective drawing, and the 1-point perspective is directly in the middle of the piece, it obviously has really well balance, and it has got a lot of unity. I like that I forgot my door and put it as a tunnel going through a hill. It doesn't have a lot of variety. I'd like to say that the emphasis is actually on that tunnel off in the distance. The train tracks themselves and the negative space seem to push your eye towards that tunnel, and I think had I not forgotten the last door, I don't think the piece would have as much unity. You could argue that there's movement with train tracks, but I don't know. But there's definitely a lot of pattern in this piece. And again, I hope that you enjoyed this. I tried to do something a little different to break up the monotony.